This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The latest on the fight against the coronavirus as the death toll reaches 2,348. Rwanda sets up a coronavirus test lab in Kigali. And US President Donald Trump's travel ban against 4 African countries expected to bite as it takes effect today. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. Also coming up this hour. Lobster catchers in South Africa suffer losses after China's import controls. And in sports, Kenya's Harambee Starlets gear up for their maiden Turkey Women's Cup appearance. Within the hour, South Sudan will witness the swearing-in of the unity government it hopes will end years of conflict. CGTN's Patrick Oyet is standing by in Juba to bring us the details from the events as they happen. Africa Live begins now. In our top story, we start with the latest on the coronavirus outbreak. The total number of confirmed cases in China has now passed 76,000. The death toll stands at more than 2,300, while over 20,000 have recovered. Hubei province has seen the most confirmed cases, with more than 63,000, of which over 70% are in the capital Wuhan, where the outbreak began. Guangdong, Zhejiang and Henan provinces are the next worst affected areas, each reporting more than 1,200 cases. Beijing has nearly 400 confirmed cases and Shanghai over 300. The virus has spread to 27 other countries, which altogether have reported over 1,500 cases and 12 deaths. South Korea and Japan are the worst hit countries outside China. Earlier, more than 600 people were confirmed infected aboard a cruise ship quarantined off Japan, but all the passengers have now disembarked. Iran has reported 4 deaths from 18 confirmed cases in over 6 cities. Well, government officials from Hubei province have just been briefing the press on the coronavirus outbreak. They said efforts to stabilize the provision of daily necessities have brought results.
There are enough reserves of daily necessities from enterprise level to local government level, and we also have a sufficient national reserve as a backup. The logistics are also smooth, with 5 transfer stations set up within the province. We have been improving the supply network with over 3,500 big and medium supermarkets open. Many have changed their way of operating with more and more online orders. Logistics companies are also gradually getting back to normal operation to ensure the supply of daily necessities.
To South Korea now, where 229 new cases of the coronavirus have been confirmed, thus raising the total to 433. Now, according to the country's Center for Disease Control and Prevention, almost all the new cases were linked to a church in the city of Daegu and a hospital in Cheongdo County. Officials say the number could rise significantly as more than 1,000 people who attended services at the church have reported flu-like symptoms. Meanwhile, here in Africa, Rwanda has stepped up preparedness for the novel coronavirus by setting up a test lab at Rwanda's Biomedical Center, the National Referral Lab in Kigali. Now, this makes the country the second in the region to establish such a facility after Kenya. CGTN's Mohammed Abubakar reports.
Rwanda is the latest country in Africa to step up its preparedness for the novel coronavirus, after the country announced this week that they have set up a test lab at the Rwanda Biomedical Center. Dr. Jose Nyamusore is in charge of the country's Epidemic Surveillance and Response Division, says the fully equipped lab is another big preventive measure taken by the government.
I think we're among the rare countries to have it. We never declare it because it's not in our culture to say. We get them, I think it was on before 10th February. If I recall very well, beginning February. So far we can test these new coronaviruses. What remains is to sustain that laboratory supply. because it's new, they are rare on the market. So this is where we are now maneuvering here and there to compile the stock.
Containing the spread of epidemics is not a new phenomenon here in Rwanda. Last year, they managed to take emergency measures to prevent the spread of Ebola virus across the border from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
So we keep adapting ourselves on the reality of the epidemics. And as I said, this comes after just where the Ebola is dropping. So we train a lot of people. And the training does not only provide capacity, but it provides also the alertness to healthcare workers. So once you train someone on the highly pathogenic disease, it stays there, not only for that disease, but it paves a space, a concern for any other disease.
Health authorities here have also identified an isolated location in Muhanga district, just an hour drive from the capital, Kigali, to set up a quarantine facility that can hold up to 300 patients.
If all together we join our efforts, we can fight anything that can happen. And we'll put our heads on, our hands on, our legs on, our heart and the spirits. And containment, timeline, no one knows, but everyone is working to contain it as quick as possible, because every outbreak has a lot of implication.
China do have strong trade ties with Rwanda, who also earlier this month indefinitely suspended all direct flights to and from China. All this in a bid to help contain the spread of the virus. Mohamed Abubakar for CGTN, Kigali, Rwanda.
Now, a new study by the Lancet Medical Journal has suggested that Egypt, along with 2 other African countries, are at high risk of seeing coronavirus infections. The study published this week links this risk factor to Cairo's close trade with and travel ties with China. But since the outbreak, Egypt has been among the fastest countries to prepare itself for COVID-19, with the WHO praising efforts the country has taken. Here's Adel Al-Maghrawi with more.
Egyptian ports were among the first to get prepared for screening COVID-19 cases. The North African nation established a remote quarantine facility where all suspected cases were moved to. Progressing in all 3 required capacities of surveillance, diagnosis and communication, the WHO says it is satisfied with Cairo's measures.
They were working according to our guidelines, and based on the discussions, the way it was done, the time, the quick and the fast action taken by the government and under the guidance of WHO, the way we organize with the ministry and the proper guidance we are providing to them, this will enable us to say that it was done properly.
When its first case of COVID-19 was announced, Egypt's contingency plans were put to test. The case was isolated and a dedicated team monitored it.
The isolation measures that is done for this is a real example for the case. It is done, and I am on daily contact with the persons in charge there, and daily, I can say, monitoring the situation through discussing and obtaining information from the isolation site also.
Last Tuesday, that case has tested negative for COVID-19. Until then, it had shown no symptoms. But it's still being isolated until the incubation period passes. Egypt has earned the WHO's trust for its entire medical setup to face the virus. The organization, however, suggests developing areas to better manage misinformation among the public.
There should be additional training to the media to create a health media network in Egypt that will help a lot in obtaining the correct information and conveying the most appropriate message depending on the public health event.
Egypt could be among the most threatened African nations to import COVID-19, but the country is assured the measures it's taking are up to international standard. Cairo is so confident that it is resuming flights with China this week. Adel Al-Maghrawi, CGTN, Cairo.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Let's go to South Sudan now, where the much-awaited swearing-in of a unity government has finally arrived. The heads of state and government from East Africa are arriving in Juba for the event. Well, so far, President Salva Kiir has appointed 4 vice presidents, among them Riek Machar. Our correspondent, Patrick Oyet, has been following events closely for us in Juba. He joins us now live. Patrick, a very, very big day in Juba. Just bring us up to speed so far with the latest developments.
Yes, Lindy, a very big day indeed here. Everybody is actually focusing on the swearing-in ceremony, which is scheduled to begin anytime from now. I can also tell you that the South Africa's vice president or deputy president is also here. And of course, Uganda sent its prime minister, and Sudan's head of the government is here, Burhan is here. So it's a big event here, and people are actually looking forward to having it. There were supposed to be 5 vice presidents, of course. One has not been appointed because all these vice presidents, by the way, they represent a political group, and one of the political groupings have not yet decided on who exactly they would like to lead them in this government. So because of that, one is out, but any moment we expect that he or she will be appointed, and also when now that is done, then the vice presidents plus the president will sit and then appoint the minister. So yes, the event is on, and everybody is waiting to have it go behind.
And of course, Patrick, as far as the various leaders and various factions are concerned, it has been a long and contentious road to get to this point. And indeed, leaders have done their part in bringing the conflict to an end. But how are citizens reacting to this unity government?
Yeah, there is hope generally. Hope has returned to people because the war has taken a toll on this country. 4 million people have been displaced. Some have gone outside South Sudan as refugees. Some are displaced internally as internally displaced persons. 400,000 people have been killed. People have lost their livelihood. So to see this government now being formed, the 2 leaders who have been rivals now come together, sit together and make statements together. Yes, there is hope. However, there is also still a little bit of fear because people have been here before where, the government is formed and then fighting breaks out. So what people are also concerned about and what they are saying is that let this time, let the country have lasting peace. Let the leaders learn to compromise, because they can form a government, but later they start disagreeing when they're already in one government, and you'd see progress may not be made. So there is that fear also, and people are asking the leaders that this time let them compromise, let them not go to a point where they disagree and they want an outsider to come and try to resolve their issues. So yeah, that's the reaction of the people on the ground at the moment.
Well, as you say, Patrick, there are still some lingering concerns, and one of those is the unification of military forces. Tell us more about that and how long that might take for the 2 sides to unify their forces.
Yes, that is one of the concerns of the parties, also the issue of unification of forces. But I can tell you that, yes, the forces of all the armed opposition and the government are actually, in some camps, they are now together. However, the training has not begun, and that is where the concern is. But also Sudan, which is now the chair of IGAD, of course, and Uganda, which is helping in this peace process as a guarantor, have actually taken up this. They are providing the generals and the logistics that are needed for the training. So they would be leading in the retraining of these forces. And once that is done, then they will be deployed now as a joint force. It will not be any more forces of the opposition or forces of the government. They'll have been together as one force for the government. And the government of South Sudan says, yes, they want to have at least 83,000 troops. But it is a process that will take time because there is screening. You need to, people who maybe are already injured, they cannot serve in the forces, have to be sent home. They cannot be sent home without anything they have served. They have to be sent with some packages. And then you have children who are also there. They have to be sent home. So after all that screening, that is when the training will take place. So at least a minimum of 3 to 6 months, that is what we're expecting to see that training to have been completed.
Oh yes, indeed. Of course, the logistics of a unity government are another matter altogether. Patrick Oyet, thank you so much, joining us there live from Juba on this historic day that will hopefully bring an end to years of conflict. Now, turning to some other news, applying for permanent residency in the United States will become more difficult for people from 6 specific countries. This after President Donald Trump's travel ban took effect on Friday. Our correspondent Owen Fairclough visited Dulles International Airport near Washington to find out more.
Arrivals at Washington's Dulles International Airport, now beyond the reach of many who'd like to live in the US. That's because President Trump's expanded ban targeting Myanmar and Kyrgyzstan, as well as African states Eritrea, Nigeria, Sudan and Tanzania, is taking effect.
I worked for 8 years in this airport.
This Sudanese taxi driver settled in the US nearly 10 years ago.
It's like a lot of people, they want to come to visit families and all that stuff, but he's making it very difficult.
The executive order applies to immigrant visas that can give travellers a path to permanent US residency, not temporary non-immigrant visas. Trump says he's protecting the US from terrorists. The countries listed don't meet security standards. Opponents of this extended executive order say it's no coincidence that many of the countries on this list are Muslim majority countries and African states. Just days after taking office in 2017, Trump enacted a similar ban covering Chad, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Venezuela and Yemen.
We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism.
Shame, shame, shame!
Worldwide protests followed over claims Muslims were Trump's target. Campaign group Muslim Advocates estimate this latest move more than doubles the number of Muslims banned from the US to more than 320 million. Owen Fairclough, CGTN, Washington.
Meanwhile, Nigeria has in recent weeks lobbied Washington for the lifting of the ban before it goes into effect. However, that has obviously not worked. It is a tough one for Nigerians who plan to emigrate to the United States for work. CGTN's Deji Badmus has been speaking with some Nigerians about that visa ban.
ICT expert Tunde Olaleye has been planning to relocate to the United States later this year. He'd always dreamt of taking his expertise to the US, where he believes there's a better marketplace for his services. But the new visa ban has now dashed whatever hope he has of working in the United States, at least for now.
There are new ICT careers now that are very new in the market. We have cloud technology, we have cyber security, which really is still virgin. Now, I have the intention of going there to school and get this knowledge. Then after this knowledge, the systems should be able to absorb me in. But at the end of the day, you work with a company that's, okay, fantastic, you're genius, you're brilliant, you're intelligent. We would like to keep you as a talent. Where does that lead me to? I can't get the migrant visa, so I have to come back empty-handed.
The Nigerian government had made frantic last-ditch moves to stave off the ban. The country's foreign minister met with the U.S. Secretary of State early this month, and the immigration visa ban was top on the agenda of their discussion. Despite the meeting, the ban was not rescinded, leaving many Nigerians like Olaleye hugely disappointed and looking at other options in their quest to advance their careers abroad.
The Republic of Ireland is there, which is now becoming the Silicon Valley for Europe. You have Canada is expanding their community, they're expanding their GDP. They want everybody in there. They have a lot of schools there that are accommodating you. So if the United States is shutting their doors, other countries are opening their doors.
Indeed, the number of immigration from Nigeria to Canada has surged lately, and it's thanks in part to U.S. tightening border policy. But U.S. authorities have given assurances the ban would be lifted once Nigeria complied with the conditions set for the reinstatement of the immigration visa, one of which is the sharing of national security information with the U.S. government on terrorism. The Nigerian government, on its part, has given its commitment to doing just that.
We've identified all those requirements, and we had actually started working on all of them.
Nigeria and the U.S. enjoy very smooth bilateral relations. The country is the U.S. second largest trading partner in Africa. It's also a strategic partner of the U.S. in the fight against terrorism, a partnership that even the U.S. admits has been expanding. It's a reason why many here, like Olaleye, are pretty confident that the ban would not last for long. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Well, time now for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. A community in Kenya struggles to keep its language alive with less than 10 speakers left. And in Cape Town, hundreds of refugees to be forcefully removed from a church compound.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
As the world marks Mother Language Day, one community in Kenya is battling to save its language. The Yaku people started living among the Maasai community a long time ago, and their native Yakunte language is now on the brink of extinction. CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa reports on the community's efforts to revive this part of its heritage.
The
words that roll off the elderly man's tongue are unfamiliar to the children. So he accompanies his words with gestures, naming body parts in the Yakunte language. It is ancient but rarely spoken and might soon disappear altogether. There are about 10,000 Yaku people left in Kenya's Rift Valley region, and Rashid is just one of the 10 people here who can speak the language fluently.
My mother taught me the language as a child, then I learned more by listening to the elders.
The Yaku people are believed to have migrated from Ethiopia before they settled in Kenya's Mukogodu forest. They started out as hunters and gatherers, but as they interacted with their neighbors, the Samburu and the Maasai pastoralist communities, their culture and language changed.
When they came of age, the young Yakunte men and women met and intermarried with the local communities.
The Maasai dominated the Yaku. Before long, the lines between the two communities were blurred. Today, the Yaku are considered a sub-tribe of the Maasai, and Yakunte is one of the languages in Kenya that have been classified by UNESCO as almost extinct. The others include El Molo, Ogiek, Omotik, and Suba. But members of the Yaku community are now making efforts to revive the language. Rashid teaches his grandchildren the language at home, but there are plans for the village elders to teach the language at the local primary school, while other teams work with the remaining Yakunte speakers to publish the Yakunte dictionary. The Yaku Laikipia Trust, which is spearheading these efforts, also plans to set up a museum with Yaku artifacts. Locals dream of a revival of their culture and language.
It would be bad if the language disappeared before we learned it. We want to learn what they called houses, fire, how they shared greetings. We want to know everything.
But getting funding to do just that is proving difficult.
When we started this thing, we wanted to revive this language, to document, to keep in record, to come to get people who can teach this language. Where can we get the resource of keeping these people to continue?
With speakers of the Yaku language getting older, time to save it is fast running out.
I really want to see the language revived so that when we die, the children continue to speak it.
And locals fear that if their efforts to save their language are unsuccessful, in a few years these words will fade from their lips and their minds until nothing remains except a faint whisper of a language gone with the wind. For members of the Yaku community, every phrase and every word in this language is precious, and though the situation is dire, they continue to make every effort to preserve the language and the culture for future generations. Wilkis Anyabo, CGTN in Doldol, Kenya.
And let's now head to South Africa, where hundreds of refugees and asylum seekers are expected to vacate a Cape Town church. Now, this follows a court ruling that gave the city the green light to enforce its bylaws. The group has been occupying the church since the end of last year after fleeing their homes due to safety concerns. They've been demanding resettlement to another country. CGTN's Travis Andrews is in Cape Town. He now brings us that report.
It's a scene that has played out for months in the heart of a touristy part of the city's CBD. More than 1,000 refugees holed up in a church and on streets, with women and kids amongst them. They came because they felt unsafe in their communities and lived inside here in unhygienic conditions. But that could all change as the sheriff of the court begins to enforce the law. The refugees have clearly been unhappy about the latest ruling.
The previous judge said that the city need to provide for refugees accommodation, temporary shelter. And this one who ruled this, the final decision, he said that they just need to leave, while they didn't even provide where this refugee will go, which is unfair.
The judgment, though, applies only to the city's bylaws, which means that local police cannot prevent refugees from starting fires to cook food or washing themselves in the streets. The city has also been tasked with collecting the refugees and taking them to another facility for processing and documentation. And even with some bags packed, there still remains a lot of hesitation.
They spend 4 months. Now we are going to 5th month. They are saying go back to the community. We don't understand which community they are sending refugees.
The main sticking point has been their demand to be resettled in another country, which the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and the South African Home Affairs Department say is just not possible. While the situation remains less than ideal for many refugees here, they're still holding out hope for international assistance.
The place is so congested, but we don't have choice because all of us, we are running for one thing and we are seeking for solution. We are waiting for a solution from the UN. That's why we are still here.
For many here that are planning to leave, it could be a welcome relief from the cramped and unbearable heat of the church. But for others, there still remains a lot of questions as to where their final resettlement will actually be. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
And to Somalia now, where the government is struggling to address health-related challenges, especially for children. A WHO and Lancet report says the country has poor structures to protect the well-being of its youngest citizens. CGTN's Abdulaziz Billo reports from Mogadishu.
These young men are not in school. Instead, they are helping their parents fetch water dozens of kilometers away from their home. They hail from a nomadic family and have been forced to accompany their parents alongside their livestock in search of fresh grazing ground for their goats and camels. Climate-related shocks, including drought and floods, have affected livelihood for thousands of families. Decades of conflict has also adversely affected the education and health sectors in the country, with children being the biggest victims.
A lack of basic necessities in life, coupled by daily life challenges like conflict and food insecurity, is the reason why Somalia, and especially children in this country, rank poorly in the global index reports. Somalia and Africa must take care of its children.
A joint report by the United Nations World Health Organization and Lancet, a leading medical journal, say that children mainly in sub-Saharan Africa have the worst chances to survive and thrive as compared to children living in Europe and several Asian countries. For years, Somalia continues to rank globally as one of the highest lifetime risks of maternal deaths in the world, with women facing at least 1 in 22 lifetime risks of maternal death, according to findings by UN health agencies. Medical experts say that lack of awareness and vaccination is partly to blame for leading causes of death among children, especially under the age of 5. Militant group Al-Shabaab has also banned health agencies from vaccinating children under its control, further worsening government's efforts of combating preventable diseases.
In Somalia, children remain at risk of preventable diseases like pneumonia that affect the respiratory system. UNICEF statistics in 2017 say more than 16,000 deaths were reported globally from pneumonia. This is a very high level. We also see cases like cholera, malaria, and diarrhea, preventable things that cause deaths in children.
Meanwhile, in efforts to boost healthcare among children, last year, Mogadishu launched one of Africa's largest immunization campaigns using the oral cholera vaccines, targeting close to 650,000 children. It has also announced a budget increase in efforts to address health challenges facing both young and old in the country. Abdulaziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
And coming up in your business news, up next. Lobster catchers in South Africa suffer losses after China's import controls. And Zimbabwe says it will take at least 5 years to completely move away from the US dollar to local currency.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
We start your business news in South Africa. The country sells more than 90% of its lobster catch to China, but exports came to a halt after the coronavirus outbreak hit demand. The effect on fishermen who depend on selling lobsters to make ends meet has been devastating. CGTN's Terry Wangari reports.
The lobster catchers of South Africa's Western Cape have become an unexpected casualty of the coronavirus. This is after China halted imports of the West Coast rock lobster last month as part of measures to contain the outbreak.
The disruption now because of the coronavirus has added to our problem because we are stuck now. We sit with a resource, but we cannot export, we cannot convert it to money. Government usually in other countries would step in, they would intervene, they would come in and say this is an emergency here, let us do this.
First detected in China, the coronavirus epidemic has killed more than 2,000 people and infected tens of thousands more. This has disrupted global aviation, shipping trade and tourism sectors. In South Africa, which is yet to record a single positive result, the local lobster industry has been hit hard by the loss of its major trading partner. Last year, it exported 95% of 1,084 tons of total allowable annual catch to China.
I'm stuck now because there they put in our catches aside now. The factory don't want to take our fish. There's no market for our fish.
Brown holds a permit allowing her a total catch of 203 kilograms per season, which in her case runs from the 15th of November to the 31st of March. The government has previously restricted the daily catch limits and number of fishing days for commercial and small-scale fishing sectors. This is in a bid to restore natural crayfish stocks threatened by poaching and overfishing. Before China halted seafood imports, Brown could expect to earn $22 per kilogram for live exported lobster. The price has since slid to a mere $8 per kilogram on the local market.
I think the way forward is the government to give us an extension and to let us catch weekends, and that they can also help us to get the market, to export our fish, because locally want to give us 125 rand a kilo. The market is gave people that caught before the coronavirus, they gave people about 340 rand a kilo. Wow. Now, that is a great amount that I'm going to be lost with.
The West Coast Rock Lobster Association, which represents offshore and nearshore rights holders, said the outbreak has had a serious impact, with direct financial loss to rights holders estimated in excess of $17 million.
At the moment, the coronavirus has had a serious impact on the industry. Obviously, financially, the number we're looking at, if things stay the same, is in excess of 257 million. And that is a direct impact on right holders / quota holders. But then there's the secondary effect on the people working in the factories that are now going to be processing less lobster, the people catching it. They're going to be taking out less fish, and they're on a commission basis. So our fishing communities are going to have less money in their communities.
The industry was in discussion with the government about possible interventions, such as extending the fishing season should China's trade restrictions persist. Terry Wangari, CGTN.
In Zimbabwe, the country's central bank chief says it will take the country at least 5 years to completely de-dollarize. While the central bank maintains they are on track and the process is going smoothly, many transactions, particularly in the informal sector, are still in US dollars. CGTN's Farai Makutoya filed this report.
When Zimbabwe banned foreign currencies to pave way for the reinstated local unit, businessman Kelvin Motsi was in limbo.
When I came to work, all my colleagues were asking, how should we trade today? Ever since in the morning up to now, we haven't closed the sale, 1. 2, we haven't made a full quotation, because already we are fearful of selling a quote in US dollars. Already it's banned. But the jinx of the matter is we do not fully comprehend the idea of what they have announced.
8 months on, things are a bit clearer. He charges in Zimbabwe dollars, but links everything to the greenback.
Every day in the morning, I look up on internet, I look up on certain WhatsApp groups, know what's going on, what's trending, what's the rate, the interbank rate as well. That's the one I use. I also go to the parallel market, I just check how much are they selling at, so that I set my prices right according to that very day. Because it's these days it's hard to strategically plan for the next month.
That means daily price adjustments, an administrative nightmare which is necessary due to a lack of confidence in the Zimbabwe dollar, though authorities think otherwise. The central bank bases its claim on bank deposits as well as the value of transactions in local currency, which now outstrip those in US dollars. However, some say those statistics may not necessarily reflect the situation on the ground, especially in the informal sector, where US dollars are preferred and their use remains unaccounted.
When we begin to believe in our own currency, and we want to hold our own currency and not other currencies, then you can declare that de-dollarization is happening.
For that to happen, the Zim dollar must meet certain criteria.
1, as you have said, people do not like it. People should like money. We need money. I love money. I like money. 1, that's 1. 2, it should have a sense of secureness. To secure your wealth in a currency, it should be easy. There should be easy access. Not of only the liquid cash, but we also have to have free access to our monies in the banks every time when we need it.
The central bank plans to release higher denomination banknotes soon as one way to improve availability. Farai Makutoya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Tunisia is hosting the International Smart Industries Exhibition under the slogan Industry 4.0, in Tunisia, a transition underway. The event is organized by the Agency for the Promotion of Industry and Innovation in association with the Ministries of Industry, Small and Medium Enterprises, Communication Technologies and the Digital Economy.
This technological event aims to disseminate the concept of intelligent industry, Industry 4.0, and to encourage industrial companies and economic operators in general to take advantage of the opportunities offered by this new industrial revolution.
Innovation is the main difference between leaders and followers. That's how we can ensure the perennity of our economy. It is through smart industries and scientific research.
The event has hosted several workshops in new technologies for 500 managers. In addition, the Agency for the Promotion of Industry and Innovation is providing support to 100 companies in their transition to Industry 4.0 through the creation of 2 national centers for skills.
Each company used to be isolated from the other companies. This international event brings together startups from different fields to exchange information, skills, and to collaborate on new 4.0 projects.
Integration Objects is a world-leading solutions provider for process automation, command and control centers, operational intelligence, industrial Internet of Things, IIoT, cybersecurity, big data analytics for enterprises, process, power, and utilities industries, defense, and governmental institutions.
Our platform and programs are 100% Tunisian. Saudi Aramco is our main client. It is the largest oil production company in the world. We've installed the 4.0 and big data solutions in offshore drilling rigs to provide follow-up and maintenance.
A hackathon challenge was organized with the participation of 22 teams and 60 engineers. They have competed for 48 hours to find technological solutions to challenges facing enterprises in the field of Industry 4.0. The Ministry of Industry and Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises declared that the state has been working for years to establish a smart industry in order to improve the competitiveness of Tunisian enterprises. The minister added that over 90% of the country's exports are from manufacturing industries. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Well, that's where we leave your business news. Here's what's still ahead on the program. Coming up, a Sierra Leone gangster leaves the streets for poetry.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's go to Sierra Leone, where we meet a reformed gangster who's left the life on the streets for a new journey and career in poetry and songwriting. CGTN's Tuli Shabalala has more.
Meet Yusuf Kamara. 3 years ago, he was the leader of the Give a Damn Gaza gang in the slums of Freetown.
This is Exodus Lane, Gaza. As you can see, it's a very tight and narrow lane, but this is where I've done most of my gangster or my thuggery act, you know. I used to do my things here.
He left the streets to write poetry. The 27-year-old hopes his new journey can offer inspiration to many youths in Sierra Leone.
My future is clear in the poetry, and I don't want to keep this feeling to myself. I want to give back to colleagues, more especially the little youth. Like I said, I've spent more than 13 years on the street. So seeing like the junior youth still coming into the streets, rushing into the street activities, what will I do to stop this? Because I was just like them when I took the streets, and I've gained nothing, just pain, disappointment, jail, long time in prison.
Kamara has been published in several international poetry magazines, and he was invited last year to attend the African Writers' Conference in Kenya.
The street is spread big and deep like the sea. You could not see it because you can't relate. Down there, we run in the streets like a taxi.
He owes his dramatic turnaround to the Way Out Arts, a charity that empowers homeless and underprivileged youths.
For the past 11 years, we have worked with over 5,000 young youths across Sierra Leone. We're doing working within the arts, the music, the media. So like we're using those platforms, see how best we can give opportunity and chance to the youth for them to use it to make change for themselves, because you can't change someone.
Way Out manager Gabriela Kamara is a sound recordist who is helping youngsters get their tunes out to the public. Known as Gibbo, he used to live on the streets. He joined Way Out in 2010 to follow the video training course they offered.
Like some of them have, example, like done a track. Like you have done music because you have been humiliated from your community for a long time and come back here and do a track that you can be proud of. So you can have something you can be proud of, go back home and show to your communities, this is what I've been doing. I'm not the bad guy you used to know. So that's the most important thing, because like that makes society accept them back.
Today, many homeless youth come here to hone their writing skills, sing or learn about music production and recording. They have the opportunity, like Yusuf Kamara, to regain their confidence and live a life away from crime. Thuli Shabalala, CGTN.
And here's what's coming up in your sports news up next. Kenya's Harambee Starlets gear up for their maiden Turkey Women's Cup appearance.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
In your sports news, Kenya's national women's team head coach David Ouma believes their forthcoming trip to play at the annual Turkish Women's Cup next month is the platform they need to aim for a successful World Cup qualifying bid in the future. The 2020 edition of the competition, that is also known as Alanya Gold City Cup, after the city in which it's held, will run from the 2nd to the 11th of March. Ouma, who led the team, known as Harambee Starlets, to their first and only Africa Women's Cup of Nations campaign in 2016, added the decision to send the side to Europe is another sign of just how seriously women's football is being taken in Kenya. The head coach is expected to trim the squad to a final list of 21 just a few days before the team jets out to Turkey on the 2nd of March, with his provisional squad reporting to camp in Nairobi on Sunday.
This is a big move.